This is the Black Narrative.
Yo, shalom, this is Black Eyes.
And this is Equis.
Welcome to the Black Narrative. We're here for another one. This was a very casual conversation, man. 'Cause I know y'all haven't seen Equis, well, before the last broadcast. I haven't seen him in about 6 months. So, so we basically, I didn't want to share what he was doing. I just want to wait to come back and he can share his story himself. So, but basically, he went overseas for a while. So I'll let Equis kind of share his thoughts and kind of go from there.
Well, firstly, I want to start off by saying that it was a very humbling experience, to say the least. You really, because there's two kinds of traveling. There's the kind of traveling where you are, which is the kind of traveling a lot of Americans and people around the world like to do, which we oftentimes call tourism, where you go and you see the sights. You might have some sort of guide or something like that, but you don't really see the people. Mm-hmm. The people are kind of like the fauna of the area to a lot of people that are tourists. And because of this kind of disconnect between the people actually go into the area and the people of the area, there's oftentimes a lot of misconceptions that occur, especially with Americans, because, you know, Americans are very arrogant while being ignorant. Mm-hmm. And I guess there's a few misconceptions that to clear up.
Well, tell me where you went. Like, where did you go?
Well, we started out in England. Me and a buddy of mine, we went to London, then we went to Paris and Barcelona as well.
Okay.
And man, where do I even start? Where do I even start?
Yeah. Well, first of all, did it feel like a Twitter space that we have? You know, like we have all the Twitter spaces. We get the people out, like arguing against the
FBA.
FBA and Tether Talk and no FBA. Like, but how was your interactions with Black people in Europe?
Well, first, it was honestly really kind of like it was in the U.S. You know what I mean? No. Let me not say that. It was better.
Why was it better?
Because it's one of those things where there's a common camaraderie that they're able to extend to you if you're able to try to meet them where they're at. Because oftentimes you have many things that cause risk between Black folk around the world. Cultural differences, language barriers, arrogance, you know, not seeing each other as human, you know, those are some things to take into consideration. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of, because I came humbly, and it was one of those things where I was reduced to a child because I was having to use, not with Spanish, but when I was having to navigate with French, it was one of those things where I was like a child. It was very hard.
But you speak fluent in Spanish, right?
Yeah.
And you know what, a good bit of French?
Yeah.
So he was able to like communicate with them when he was over there. So he wasn't like totally just so Americanized that, you know, he thought English only. He was able to meet them halfway.
Exactly. It was one of those things where, firstly, they appreciate the fact that you use their language. Mm-hmm. And secondly, I was actually able to converse and trade perspectives, you know, with the people in France. And it was interesting because when I came back to the U.S., the first thing that a lot of people were asking me were, how stuck up were the French? Mm-hmm. Because Americans have this notion that when they go to France, the French people don't want to speak English with them. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, well, you got to understand, you have the textbook English that they might learn in school, but then you have the English that we speak on a day-to-day. People do not understand how much of a strain it is for the French or anybody that doesn't have English as a native language to speak with you.
You say it's one of the hardest languages to learn.
English is a very difficult language to learn, yes. But because we're English speakers, a lot of people think that English is default language. Language default English because they've never attempted to learn another language. They never had stepped outside their comfort zone to experience the difficulties people go through to speak English. So they've never it's very easy to say, oh, they just don't want to speak to me. But no, first off, you are over in their country. Let anybody be over in America and not speak English.
Speak American.
Right, speak American. Let anybody be in America and not speak American and see how they react. But Americans feel they could go to other countries and be elitist with their language, with their culture, and what have you, and think that things are going to be good. And that's one thing that a lot of black people in the West do not realize is we carry a lot of this kind of colonial colonizer mindset with us to these different places, and they can smell it on you.
You know, and we delayed doing this for a minute. So actually, he's been back for a minute so you just missed the whole thing going on right now in France right now. Because right now they just tearing that place apart.
Yeah, because of the
the young guy got shot by police.
I believe the Algerian,
Mm-hmm.
the Algerian young man.
You just missed all that. So you've been home from that.
Honestly, that whole situation is very unfortunate.
Yeah. And how, in your opinion, how did they feel about Black Americans?
As far as overall, or
overall experience, either when you told them you're from America, what to discuss, or were they curious, or were they not polite?
Well, I hate to say it like that, but they don't interact with Americans a lot. A lot of times we get this notion because we know that other places exist, but the actual, just like I said with the tourism, you have actual going and meeting with the people, and then you have, I'm going to see the Eiffel Tower, I'm going to take a selfie with it, and I'm going to be holding up the pyramid at the Louvre. You got those kind of things. When they met me and I was interacting with them, talking with them, it was one of those things where because of the rarity of interacting with an American, firstly, an American that speaks French, secondly, they were starting to think like maybe you're not like the stereotypes. Maybe you're different. I said no, all the stereotypes are true.
about to ask you what are the stereotypes, or some of them?
Oh man, Americans are arrogant. Americans are ignorant. They're uneducated. And I'm not talking about Black Americans. I'm talking about Americans overall. In general. Right. Americans are not cultivated. We're not cultured. We're very imposing. As far as we're stubborn, there's a lot of very negative stereotypes that they have Americans, and I had to tell them, no, I'm not like a lot of Americans. Not to say that I'm any better or anything like that, but as somebody that's been outcasted by other Americans, I imagine America has made the decision that I'm not like a lot of Americans.
Right.
Yeah,
but I know a lot of us are. I know a lot of our people all over the world, right? I mean, we just separate by a ship stop. But did you interact with any straight up African employees over there?
Oh, a lot. Matter of fact, when I was in Spain, there was a demonstration of a bunch of Senegalese, and they were demonstrating against their current president because he is trying to basically keep the reins of power. So when I tell you and funny enough, there were some brothers in Barcelona trying to sell me drugs. So there's a lot of different experiences with Black folk from England, France, Spain. There were a lot of Black people, and this is one thing that I can say that a lot of people were surprised of. There are a ton. When I was in Paris, ton of Black people. There's a ton of Black people and Arabs. I had kebabs more than I had baguettes. When I tell you, and that's one thing I want to just to comment on the situation that's going on, the unfortunate situation that's going on in France right now with the riots and all that. One thing about Algerians, man, they will stick together. They will stick together, and the French hate them. The French absolutely hate Algerians because they are the ones that will buck against the colonizers, and they help each other out. And it's to the point, and oftentimes we often have a lot of things to say about other groups of people. I mean, especially in the Black sphere. Black people love singling out other groups of Black people to attack, be it with made-up notions such as FBA and non-FBA, or what have you, gender, age, what have you. Any opportunity we get to attack other Black people, we take it ravenously. Algerians, it does not matter where they are in the world, they always help each other. They always help each other, and they have such a strong sense of community that personally I envy. I wish Black folk in any part of the world were like that.
Right.
It
should be. Take a look after your own.
Yeah, but But even in France, you know, the black folk there are different because they have culture. And when I say culture, they come from different African countries. And so they have a certain kind of background, African or, you know, because, you know, there's not just black folk in native to Africa. You know, it's black folk, you know, well, basically around on the African plate, you know. They have culture, they have religion, they have language, they have all these different things that give them a robust identity alongside being black. But here in the West, we think being black and culture and black culture is dancing and music.
Yeah, it's entertainment.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. You'll talk with a black American, you'll talk with a black Jamaican, talk with the black Puerto Rican, you talk with the black, you know, a black Brazilian. The two main things they're gonna start talking about and start debating about, and we're gonna have lines and wars, and this person just had a nuke, is pulling up the nuke, is music and dance. Now let me ask you, how many arguments within the black community or the new black media is behind music and dance?
Way too many to count.
I'd say most of it is behind music and dance.
Yeah.
That's not culture. That doesn't, we don't have morals to instill. We don't have a faith to instill. We don't have a code to instill. We don't have all these different things to instill.
You know, funny because like when I talked to my brother a while back, I was saying the same thing. You know, he went to Africa and everything. He was telling me how Africans feel about us, like the positive things, and how they admire our entertainment. But I was like, you know, I'm not really impressed by that because we don't own it.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And then honestly, and then the entertainment they are promoting is trash. Like we do have talent here, but what they promote, and put out there to the world is our trashiest. You know, it's not our best. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I definitely feel you on that.
Yeah, and that's a very strong point because they'll give us props when it comes to entertainment. And that's really all they know to give us props for because there is nothing else. And a lot of black folk will get upset with that. But what else do we have to show that that we have something to be admired? And don't go back into the distant past. You know, and of course we've done a lot of things. We have all these inventions. We have all these movements. But what are we doing now?
Yeah, that's very true.
And what do we have now culturally?
Yeah. How was the black people? How did they feel about the country they were living in?
As far as like their respective country, like for instance, you know, black people in France and whatnot. It's a very kind of different relationship they have to it. I'll say this: it's we're in America, we speak English. A Jamaican person will move to America because they speak English. Oftentimes, people in Jamaica, when they think, where am I going to move? It's between England or America or Canada because they speak English. And it's kind of that same relationship that they have with France and Spain and even England. Because, you know, in England, you'll see different kinds of black folk too. And the concept is, let's say they're from Guadeloupe, you know, a little French island in the Caribbean, and they want to go to school. Well, because they are technically a citizen of France, because France has the overseas collectives, they'll say, well, I'm going to go to school in France. And these different, they have qualms with their respective countries to varying degrees, but because of the language, it's often easier for them to assimilate than it would be to go to, let's say, another African country to get the education.
So if they were black and growing up in France, and they had to move outside the country, they probably moved to another country that speaks French.
They will. Okay. They will more than likely. And honestly, I would say it's actually kind of comparable to how we operate as blacks in the West, because they do understand they're colonized and they have been colonized, but some have a different relationship to it. Like, you know how you have you'll have a Martin Luther King, you have a Malcolm X, and then you have Oprah Winfrey. You got people that dip within the construct and the world of the society at different degrees. So it's very dynamic, kind of like it is in the West.
Yeah, I guess that's and like bouncing off that, I guess I kind of want to know, like, are they patriotic about where they stay? I know for us,
No.
Okay, if you just have the 4th of July,
Yeah.
and, me, I can care less because like our people still enslaved and murdered and raped during it in 1776.
Yeah.
But you also still have a lot of our people who are like, well, I don't care, I'm gonna have my barbecue anyway. It is what it is.
Well, I'll say it's on two sides because there is, and it's it's a case study, truly, because there is a split identity the same way that blacks in the West have a split identity because we know that we're not native to these lands. I mean, most of us know.
Right.
There's some others, but most of us with sense know, but we're not native to this land.
Right.
We know that this isn't our soil.
Right.
And so there's that split identity where you're like, okay, well, I'm black. I know I'm a descendant of somewhere over in the Afro-Asiatic sphere, but I'm here in the U.S. I've never set foot on Africa or on any part of Africa or the Middle East or what have you. I speak English. I speak a European language. What am I?
Right.
It's the same kind of concept with blacks who, let's say they leave Senegal. And there's actually a term for this, an Afropean. Afropean. Let's say they leave Senegal, right? And they grow up in France. Them growing up in France, they have more of a French identity. And so when they go back to Senegal, there's a disconnect because their accent is different. They have they speak the French accent from France.
So they put an Akon.
Right. Look. Yeah. Right. Look. They have the French accent. The mainland European French accent. While in Senegal they have another French accent. So they can tell they're not from there. They have a different upbringing. They've been around different groups of people. They have a different mindset, and yet they still have this connection to this country. But how much of a connection? And so there is still that dilemma as far as the dual identity,
Yeah, same way here. Or if you moved anywhere else, like for me, I was born in Mississippi, but Atlanta is home for me. I grew up here.
Yeah.
And every time I go back to my home state of Mississippi, like say for unfortunately like a funeral or anything of that nature, I don't feel as comfortable there because I was raised in the old Atlanta culture. That I grew up in. That's where my friends was at. That's where I went to high school at. And and my younger years in Mississippi, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, I had that thing. Like it's a disconnect. I do feel that, and I feel like anybody can relate to that if they were born in one spot but raised in another.
Yeah, and these are phenomena to the point where there is a term for it, an Afropean. And another thing that's kind of, but one thing that's really different is our condition is a lot deeper because they know their country of origin, they know their people, they know their background. They have kind of they have a stronger sense of who they are, while we have nothing.
Because they know exactly. Because Africa is I think a lot of people forget that Africa is a continent, not a country.
Africa is freaking huge.
Right. You talk over 50 countries. Over 50 countries and many, hundreds of cultures there.
Yeah.
And so I guess, from listening to you, a lot of them know exactly where they came from.
Right, exactly.
So that they have a better connection compared to us. We call by a byword, we just call strictly black.
Yeah.
And, we have, oftentimes, a lot of us have white names.
Yeah.
And then we do have unique names. These are names that's made up with no meaning at all.
Right.
They grew up in a white man's religion. We've been stripped. And then, the ones who still consider themselves pro-black, they sit around celebrate Christmas or Thanksgiving on 4th of July.
Right.
So it's hard because they really did a number on us.
Yeah.
And every time I think about it, I think about the movie Roots.
Yeah.
He knew who he was. He knew his name Kunta Kinte.
Yeah.
And they beat him till he said his name was Toby. They Christianized his name.
Yep.
And then I think
that was a start.
Yeah, because you strip your name, you strip your culture and your whole background right there just from the name alone.
Yeah.
And then I don't think we realized how young the slaves were when we came over here.
Yeah.
And these are
a lot of them were.
Yeah, we were old slaves on the ship. These were young ones. Mm-hmm. So you talk about 2 generations in, you lost everything.
Yeah.
Man,
and it's crazy because there's a lot of different case studies within the French world that are extremely interesting, and these are for conversations for another time.
Right,
if I guess off air or something like that. But look, there are certain islands you know, in like the Indian Ocean, where, like for instance, there's like the Reunion Island, where there were people that it was unpopulated, completely unpopulated until the French came, and now there's people that are a mix of black and Indian and all these different ethnicities that are inhabit the island, but they weren't native of it, you know.
How you feel about the food, your food experience over there around the black people and their food? We already know how white food is.
Well,
Or did you get a chance to experience a lot of it?
man, I had it was morely a mix of Arab and honestly a lot of the foods that were there were mainly a mix of Arab and French. But
Was it partially because they didn't use pork or anything like that? Was that like the reason why? Or did
it was a lot of halal stuff.
Okay.
You know, but I wanted to get a chance to eat some African food. I never got the chance for.
Did you have any jollof rice or anything like that?
Not yet. No, not over there. I don't even know if they eat jollof. I think jollof is more Nigerian. I'm not sure they.
Well, I know you got a lot of Nigerian Brits. I mean, I'm not sure about France and Spain.
Oh well, we did eat Ethiopian and Jamaican when we were in England, but
How was Jamaican food over there for you?
Man,
This is good. Was it bad? I mean, how you feel about it?
England don't use salt. And just like, man, look, whenever black folk go into any area, we adopt their ways.
Yeah.
And so many, and these, I'm sorry, man, these brothers ain't use salt. They ain't use salt in their food, man. Man, me and my homie were very disappointed, man. We were excited to have something with some salt because nothing had salt in it.
Right.
And we're like, the Jamaican food has to have salt. We're going over, man. The brother was
flavor.
the brother was excited to have two, young black Americans in his establishment. He was like, "Oh, bro, you got to go to this, and you got to go to this," and telling us all these different places we should visit. Man, he gave us the food. We looked at each other. We're like, man.
Yeah.
I hope you don't ask how the food is, because we got to tell the truth.
Right.
We got to tell the truth to the brother. But man, I hope he don't ask how the food is.
Yeah, man, did he?
No.
Okay.
Praise God. But now we're there the whole time having to put salt.
I want to say, so I guess the next time you had to go overseas to make sure you bring your own salt.
No, they'll have salt for you.
Okay.
They know they don't season their food.
Okay. But, we always say it's better when you cook with the salt instead of putting it on afterwards, though,
Yeah, because the salt is just you cook with the salt, it's all marinated and everything.
Yeah, right.
But you put it on afterwards, it's not the same, man.
Yeah, it's definitely not the same. Okay.
But yeah, and there's a lot to say, but one major takeaway I can say is there are whole entire worlds that do not interact. Worlds of black people that do not interact. There are whole entire African countries that I didn't know existed until I started my journey with learning French. And even the same thing with Spanish. A lot of different Spanish countries and different places within, like, right in our backyard. Not literally our backyard, but right in Latin America or in the Caribbean. There's so many islands. There's so many places with black folk. But we are separated by this language barrier. And so instead of trying to burn down bridges, how about we try to learn more about each other and figure out what can we do for one another in order to build more networks, in order to be more self-sufficient, be more sovereign on a world, on a global scale.
And how do you feel about their viewpoints over there? I mean, were they open to learning more about black Americans? Were they open to working with us?
Eager.
So when like there was angry at you and called you a kata or anything like that?
No, because the thing is, now the older generations might be more stuck in their ways,
right?
But that's because the older generations, and I gotta throw my shots. You're seeing the same thing within the new black media movement, where the older generations are just freaking they're bullheaded. Mm-hmm. They're bullheaded. They've gone through so much traumas within their lives, their individual lives, and also overseas as well. Because all these different things that the older generations in America have been fed about Africans, about Caribbeans. Same thing in the Caribbean. What they've been fed about Americans. In Africa, what they've been fed about Americans, Caribbeans. All these things have culminated to now you have a bunch of a generation full of asses.
Yeah.
You got 2 or 3 generations of asses that can't work with anybody else. But the younger people who have been introduced to a larger world and know that there's different perspectives and know that whatever the Europeans got going right now ain't it, Those people, they want to work. And they're curious about learning about other black people across the world. And those are the people, and I'm not saying that everybody is a lost cause within the upper generations, but there's a lot of closed off mindsets, and that's why even the FBA versus non-FBA movement, or I don't even want to call it a movement. That's not a movement. Sham is picking up as much momentum as it is, and you go through the people who stomp down for it the most and who are most gung ho about it, and they probably haven't went anywhere.
Right.
They haven't seen much. When even the ones that go overseas, they don't go overseas with humility. Mm-hmm. They go overseas. They go to Africa, and they're telling the Africans what they want to see.
Yeah. So of course, if they come with that energy, they'll come right back with that same energy.
Yo.
And then next thing you know, nobody gets along.
I remember I had a conversation with the brother I went with, and something had occurred at the airport, and he was met with a bit of hostility from the person there, and he was upset about it, and he was like, man, like what was that about? And I was like, look, man, it's okay to be an ass from time to time. No, I said it like this. I was like, look, man, you could be an ass. You could be an ass all you want. You could look at the world and say you to the world, but don't be upset when you get that same energy back. That's it. That is, point blank, period.
Yeah.
If you want to be an ass, if you want to be hard to deal with, if you want to say screw you to everybody else, do it. Be my guest. Yeah, here's the invitation.
Right.
Don't be upset when everybody does it back to you.
Yeah.
That's it. That's fair. And I'm about fairness. I'm about people being adults.
Right.
So that's what I would say when it concerns working with people on a global scale. When you come and you tell them this is what we expect of you, this is what we need, this is this and this, don't be surprised when they come meet you with that same energy. And guess what? Now you got two asses that can't work together because they're expecting all these different things from each other, and they never sit down and say, brother, what do you need? Mm-hmm. What do you need? How can we work together as men, as women, as men and women, to be able to build something across the seas? And that's the thing. That's one very important thing in life, and that's something that we've lost or are losing as the human race, is that capacity to want to help each other.
I just thought about it too. 'Cause I mean, we were the first ones here, before Columbus. We had ships, we had trading networks and everything else. Yeah. And just thinking about it, man, they had that same attitude way back when. Our people went out and they met new people and worked with them and established trades and alliances or whatever. But now, those people want to stick strictly to themselves, but there's a greater power in having these allies. And we see it now, even with the first world countries. The U.S. is the biggest country, China's the biggest country, but they both had the allies. Yeah. They ain't trying to do it by themselves either. They know the power of having some type of allies working with you. And that's something that's something we can glean from. Yeah. And learn from.
Because it's very easy to pick off a scattered herd.
Yeah, right, absolutely. Anything else you want to share, man?
Man, I mean, there's a lot, but
I know.
I feel like that's the gist.
I got you.
I feel like that's basically essentially the gist. Is
what do you want people to take from this?
I want people to take from this. There's a whole entire world, and there's bridges to gap. There's bridges to gap. And if you do not want to gap those bridges, when we're on the other side, bye. That's it. If you don't want to gap those bridges, fine. We're gonna remember you. And when you start crossing that bridge, let me check your paperwork. Let me check your paperwork. But yeah, this business the bill.
But I like the fact, because too many of us, they take the easy route. They go on vacation, they just go to the Bahamas or on a cruise or Jamaica. But for you to just go way out over, literally overseas, and you didn't go there for a few days. You stayed there for a good minute.
Yeah, it was about 3 weeks.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And then you actually, you say, within the people, you want to sit on no tourist resort the whole time.
No,
you have to be able to engage and interact with people. So to me, I know there's so much more you got from that than you ever will from listening to a Twitter space or hear some people arguing online.
Yeah.
You know, so that's cool.
I do want to share something very kind of funny. When I was in France, and this is something that I'm going to just call out right now, is I would see Americans. I would even come across black Americans, but they weren't talking to the people. Like, you know, like whenever I did do anything touristy, you know, they weren't talking to the people. When they weren't trying to get to know the culture or anything like that, or they were just being
American.
Being very American.
But they just did it with some dope photos for the gram to show off, and you know, they ain't trying to, you know, and eat and drink. Like, they ain't trying to learn nothing.
But that's the thing. When we were going to these different touristy spots, is like there was that realization that, you know what, they're gonna come back to America, they're gonna come back to their hood and talk down on the other black folks, saying, I was in France, I was in Paris, I was never interacted with the people, never got to know the people, but you were in France, you were in Paris. We use these different opportunities to expand and grow in order to flex on each other, in order to put each other down and make ourselves feel higher and more cultivated.
And now learning experience.
Not a learning experience. I just went to France. I'm in Paris.
Yeah.
Kanye West has a song about it.
Right, right, yeah. Ninjas in Paris.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like that was just a real pet peeve of mine.
Yeah.
But that's essentially everything. But anything you glean from it?
Yeah, I mean, just from listening to you, I mean, you just kind of confirmed all the things that I thought anyway. And then, of course, you know, we've been working within the tech space for a minute now. And, you know, and not too many black Americans, you know, we do come across like a lot of, like, we've a handful of Africans.
Yeah, a lot.
A lot. Okay, and we go to events all the time. And they've all been real cool with us. You know what I mean? I can say.
They're trying to build with black Americans.
Yeah. So you know, but I do see, I mean, and not to say no bad apples, because I mean, bad apples on both sides.
Right.
But I'm not going to let those few bad apples on the other side just make me think they all ain't nothing, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because, you know, we learn from those people and
Learn
from us. Yeah, so, like, I think that's dope. But, yeah, so we just want to do a short broadcast. And we've been meaning to do this for a minute. Like I said, we've been back for a minute, but the reparations thing came up, and we just been busy.
Man, you know, life in it up, man.
Life and our outside work. You know, we just been working more behind the scenes now than being on camera. I mean, really, we both ain't really been in the mood to talk, really.
Most definitely not.
Yeah, we just been working behind the scenes, and we have some cool stuff coming up. But I appreciate y'all. Like, share, subscribe, and shalom.
Shalom. Stay vigilant, family.